Hey everybody, Rose Matter here, and welcome to the second video of my new series, Rose Rambles, where I sit down in front of the camera, I pick a gaming topic, and I just rant about it without a script. And we started off last week with the moments in gaming that made me emotional, made me sad, and if you guys missed that one, I will have it linked upwhere here somewhere. One of the cards is going to come up on either side here, and I'll also have it linked in the description bar below. But we are going to be discussing another emotion today, anger. Moments in gaming that pissed me off. And I talked about how I'm an emotional person, and that definitely applies to anger as well. There are quite a few moments in gaming that just made me very upset. So it was hard to narrow it down, but I've got some moments I want to talk about, and I could do a part 2 on this pretty easily. So if you guys would like to see a part 2 of like my rage moments in gaming, let me know. Or if there's another topic that you'd like me to talk about, I can definitely do that. But let's go ahead, let's talk about the moments in gaming that made me angry. Alright, let's talk about a game I actually played on the channel somewhat recently. Undertale. I'm sure a lot of you need no introduction to Undertale, but it is an RPG style game that you can play a few different ways. So I played it the pacifist way first, which is where I tried to kill nobody at all. It was all very sweet, and there was a lot of great characters, and I got attached to them, and I loved them, and I saved everybody, and it was all good. But then I decided to just make myself sad, and I decided to go and play the genocide run afterwards, where I kill literally everything. And that includes the characters that you come to know and love if you played, the pacifist or the neutral route before. You get very attached to these characters, and then you just have to kill them all. And the game in Pacifist Run was not very hard at all. Genocide is a completely different story. Like, these characters who are your friends in the pacifist route, they are trying to stop you from killing everybody in the genocide route, and they actually put up quite a bit of a fight. And of course, the most infamous character is Sans. So Sans is kind of like the beloved fan favorite. He is kind of he's a lazy bones, he's a skeleton, he loves a good joke, he is good-natured, and you just really like him. And you don't expect much from him because he is such a lazy, laid-back character. But after you've killed pretty much everybody else in this universe of monsters, including his brother, Papyrus, you come to the end and you have to face Sans. And he's kind of infamous as being a very difficult boss, and I kind of knew that going in. Like, I was like, okay, I know, like, Sans is the tough boss. I had no idea what I was in for. Literally, within the first 5 seconds of the first fight, I was dead. So the thing about this fight is it's trial and error. It's memorization of patterns. So in order for you to get better, you have to die again and again and again and again. And I can't tell you how many times I died in this fight, easily over 100. And in my playthrough, I did like a montage of, like, getting a little bit better, slowly learning the patterns, but you didn't see the 50, 60 times that I didn't put that in the video. And with Sans, it wasn't so much like a, like one shot, like, oh, I'm so mad, I hate this, blah, blah, blah. It was more of like a seething, slow build-up rage, like putting a frog in a thing of boiling water and just increasing the temperature. And I was just getting more and more and more and more upset with every single death. And you have to start again, but it's the only way you can get better. And I'd have to step away and just, like, take a breather. I must have been at this fight, I did it over the course of a couple of days. Like I said, easily over 100 times. And there are a couple of times where, like you can see in the video when I play Undertale, when I play this fight, where I'm getting closer and closer, and then I die, and I get upset. I'm trying to hide it. I'm trying, like, not to have too much of a rage, like, because I'm recording, but it was just, yeah, just like this seething, slow buildup of anger where I'd have to just walk away. And eventually I did beat Sans, and I will be honest, if it wasn't for the fact I was recording for the channel, I probably would have given up, but I had a feeling a lot of people didn't think I was going to be able to do it because I'm not great at, the boss fights, so I kind of just want to prove to myself and everybody else that I could do it. And after much trial and error and much frustration, I finally did it. And I was so joyous after, which is bad and kind of fucked up because, like, I'm sad that I killed Sans, but at the same time, like, he was such an annoyance, and he, like, was such a roadblock that when I finally did it, I felt this weird kind of emotion, this dichotomy of like I was very happy I was finished, but also sad that I killed him. And it was just a very emotional boss fight, and it's easily the hardest boss fight that I've ever actually completed. So yeah, that was not like me just like raging and throwing things around, but it was just a very like, yeah, like a subtle, slow buildup of rage. But all the same, I'm glad that I played the game, and I'm glad I defeated him, but my god, what a fight he put up. Alright, so a lot of the games I'm going to be talking about in this series are boss battles. It's probably not a surprise, but unlike Sans, where he was the last boss in a notoriously difficult route of a game, the next couple of boss fights I'm going to talk about happened relatively early on in the game, so it's a little bit more embarrassing. The next two I'm going to talk about were actually from kind of similar series. So first I'm going to talk about Yakuza Kiwami. So my experience or my history with the Yakuza series is that I played 3 and 4 for the PS2. I know it's weird that I didn't play the first two. I just picked up one of them on a whim because it sounded interesting and I actually really enjoyed it. The one thing I couldn't really get into was the fighting aspect. So the fighting generally is just like you can pick things up from the environment, you can like punch, kicks, do combos. It's relatively simple, but for some reason I was just never really good at it, but I dealt with it because I just enjoyed so many other aspects of the games. Yakuza Kiwami was announced for the PS4, which is a full remake of the first Yakuza, and I was like, that's awesome. I can, get into the series from the beginning, and it can, clear some things up of, like, stuff I was confused about when I played 3 and 4, obviously, because I didn't know certain aspects of the story. And I was just really happy to get back into the series I haven't played in, like, 10 years. So I started it up, I was having a good time, and you start off, I think, like, almost right from the beginning, your character, Kiryu, he is going to the memorial of a Yakuza member of your clan. And I can't remember the aspects of the stories. I apologize, it's been a couple of years since I played it, but what you need to know is Kiryu needs to get out of that, like, funeral home, and he has to fight about 200 guys. He has to fight literally everybody, all the Yakuza members who are there. You need to get out of there. And it is like a slog. It's like a dungeon almost. You just have to fight all of these guys, and it took me like a half hour at least to get out to kind of like the outside of the building, including a couple of like mini bosses. Slowly I'm making my way through. I'm not really like getting the hang of the fighting once again, but I'm just like, okay, I just need to get out of here, and then I can get into like the stuff I enjoy doing. And so I'm out of the funeral building, I'm in the courtyard, and I can see like the entrance is right there. I'm so close to like getting out. And then there's a boss fight, and it's just this like big Yakuza guy. He's shirtless, he's got a bunch of tattoos, and he's blocking your way. And I was already kind of like low on healing items, wasn't doing too great. And this guy just kicked my ass over and over again. I couldn't seem to like be able to figure out how to beat him. And I got killed a couple of times, and it was just the fact this was like the very beginning of the game. I had spent over a half hour just trying to get to this point, and then I'm just being roadblocked by this guy. And I admit, I put the controller down, and I'm like, I'm done. This was the first maybe hour of the game, and I gave up. I told myself I was gonna go back and let myself cool down and get back to it and just try again, because sometimes that's all you need to do. Is if you're getting frustrated when you're at a tough part in a game, is you just need to walk away, and then usually you come back and you beat it like first try. You just need to cool off a bit. But I never went back to it, and I don't know what happened to my copy of Kiwami. I don't know if I lent it to someone, I don't know if we sold it, I just don't have it anymore. So if I want to replay Kiwami, I'm gonna have to buy it all over again, and at this point I'm just like, do I really want to even bother? And I know it's an amazing game, I've heard nothing but good things about it. I'm sure you guys are gonna tell me in the comments, being like, oh my god, you should play it, just get past that and it'll be all good. But it's something I might do at some point, but it's just like, oh my gosh, that first level with just getting out of that building and then just that guy kicking my ass was just, it made me so mad. I was like, yeah, after a couple of times of getting defeated by him, I was just like, I'm done. So unfortunately, it's not the last time that I'm going to talk about a game where I just literally walked away from it and just never picked it up again. Okay, so the other game that I want to mention, it's kind of like similar to Yakuza. It's called Judgement, and it's actually a spin-off of the Yakuza series. It takes place in the same world. It has some of the side characters from Yakuza show up. But in this one you play as a detective named Yagami, and he used to be a lawyer until something happened, I'm not going to spoil it, that made him quit and just become a detective. So he's working with his old lawyer firm and trying to solve the mystery of a serial killer who's killing off Yakuza members and gouging their eyes out. And you are at a trial, and there is a Yakuza boss from a rival clan, and he's being put on trial for potentially being behind it. And a sister of one of the witnesses, one of the people who's going to testify against him, is kidnapped by his clan in order to convince the guy who's going to testify to retract his statements or not testify. So as Yagami, you have to go to their base and you have to rescue the witness's sister. And it's kind of similar to Yakuza, where you're in a building and you just have to fight your way through and get to like the boss. The difference is with Yakuza, it was kind of right at the beginning, so I didn't really have time to prepare. With Judgment, like, I could go and buy like healing items and things like that. The problem is I went in kind of unprepared. I should have stocked up more on stuff. I underestimated how difficult this was going to be. So this is on me. But once you're kind of in the building, you're locked in. You can't leave unless you load up from a previous save. And I hadn't saved for a while, so I was basically like, if I didn't want to have to go back a couple of hours, I was like, all right, I'm just going to have to just brute force this and eventually, hopefully, get through. And it took a couple of tries, but I finally did get to kind of like the top level where the sister is being held hostage. And the fighting style is similar to Yakuza. So once again, I'm like, I'm going to have to deal with this fighting again, but I'm really enjoying Judgment, so I'll just deal with it. And you get to the boss, and you're just in this tight, packed little room, and I believe there's 4 guys. There's kind of like a couple of goons, and then like the boss. And the problem is, because you're in such a tight space, it doesn't give you any breathing room. So it's just like you're just getting wailed on by all these guys, and you just don't have time to like be able to just like, okay, just let me get up and just let me freaking like take a second to prepare myself. And like I said, I didn't have a lot of healing items, and I used up a lot of them trying just getting to this damn place. And I think I had saved before I went into that final door, so I went in there with like almost no healing items or like anything. So I just kept getting my ass handed to me over and over again by these guys. And if I didn't want to like reload to hours beforehand, I just had to deal with it. Same situation as Yakuza, like I was just getting beat over and over again, and I was just getting more and more angry. And when I get angry, I get sloppy and I get worse. Like when I get frustrated, it just makes me play even worse. Now this is the embarrassing thing. This was the most expensive rage moment I've ever had in a game. So I got so mad that I threw my controller to the floor, and it bounced off the carpet, and it shattered my TV screen. And just that moment where I'm just staring slack-jawed at the TV with like the big crack in it, and like the picture is gone, and it's just like that kind of like you know, when you've seen a broken TV screen, it just kind of has like the colors, and it's and just like that, oh fuck, what have I done? I just wanted to throw my controller. I wasn't expecting it to bounce, because I was notorious. I used to throw my controllers to the ground when I get frustrated. I was one of those people. So I had to make the call of shame. I had to text my husband and tell him what had happened, and obviously he was not too pleased. I had to, obviously it was my fault, so I ended up buying a new TV, so that cost us $500. So that was my $500 rage moment. And that was kind of the moment where I told myself, I'm like, I need to just get a hold of myself. Like, I am being ridiculous. So that was kind of the moment that made me be like, all right, I need to take a step back and find other ways to, like, you know, get my anger out. So that was a very expensive lesson. I did eventually, I had to take a breather. I was forced to. My TV was shattered. I couldn't play the game anymore at that point. So I took some time away, went back, and of course, like, I beat the guy. Maybe, like, took me 2 tries, and then I beat it, and then I played the rest of the game and had a great time. So I highly recommend Judgment. It is not even a hard game. It's just even more frustrating that the most expensive rage quit moment I've had in a game was not even a hard game. So yeah, a little bit embarrassing to admit to the internet, but there's my shame of my most expensive rage moment. Alright, so the next boss fight I have to talk about, unfortunately, unlike Judgment where I persevered and I ended up finishing the game, this was another one like Yakuza Kiwami where I gave up and I didn't touch the game again. And this also involves another instance of me damaging something because of my anger. Thankfully not as expensive. So the game I'm going to talk about is Catherine. So Catherine is a game created by Atlus, who is the creator of the Persona series. And at the time, I had just played Persona 4. It was my first ever Atlus game, my first Persona game, and I loved it. I loved it so much. So I was trying to seek out other games similar to it. And I just happened to be in a game store, and I saw Catherine on the shelves. And immediately I was drawn in by the art style, and I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's by the guys who did Persona. This is awesome. So I read the back because I knew nothing about this game, and I saw it was a puzzle game. And I'm notorious, if you guys watch my channel, I'm not good at puzzles at all. But similar to the Yakuza series and Judgment with the fighting, I was like, you know what? I will deal with it. I will just, deal with the puzzles. I'll get past the puzzles because the rest of it is like a story-based game where you make choices, and that's like my jam. And the art style just looked so beautiful. So I was like, all right, I kind of went in blind, and I bought the game and I brought it home, and I was really enjoying like the story aspect. And then the puzzles start happening. So the puzzles happen at nighttime with the character Vincent, where he's having nightmares, and he has to complete these puzzles where he has to pull blocks while like these nightmare demon manifestations of his nightmares are chasing him. So it's kind of like an upward puzzle game. It's like a tower game where you have to like pull blocks and you have to go up a tower and make it to the top. And I was not doing great, but I was managing. Each night would take me probably a couple tries, but easing my way into it. It was the first couple nights, so I was getting through them. And then it was, I don't remember which night it is, but I remember what the boss was. It was this baby demon thing. And this one broke me. I don't know, I can't remember what it was. I don't remember the fight very much except about the demon baby, because the stupid crying and the baby talking will forever be burned into my memory because I played that so many times trying to beat it. But I just couldn't get a hang of it. I think a new type of like mechanic was introduced in that night. I can't remember. Something about the blocks a certain way, because each night I think you get introduced to a new mechanic that changes. So there was something about that mechanic I just couldn't make heads or tails of. I couldn't figure it out, and I just kept dying over and over and over again. And then I just hit a point where I got so mad. So at the time, I was living with my parents. I was playing in the basement, and we had like plaster walls. And I took my parents had like an oversized remote control. It was like something from like a gag store. I'll put a picture if I can find something similar. I took that thing and I just whipped it into the wall, and it of course made a hole in the plaster. Because we were like doing renovations in the basement at the time, so it was like basically almost exposed walls, like with just very thin plaster. And once again, like with the TV, just that moment where I'm like, oh no, what have I done? Like, it just kind of like brings you back to reality. And I don't know if I told my parents what happened. I may have told my brother, but I didn't tell my parents. I'm sure they must have noticed the hole, but they never said anything to me, as far as I know. They didn't ask about like, well, what happened? So my parents are most likely watching this video because they watch my stuff sometimes. So guys, if this is your first time hearing about how that hole was made in the wall, I'm so sorry. This was the sad thing. I got so mad at Catherine. As much as I was enjoying it up until then, I literally took the game out of the console, I put it in the box, and I brought it back and I returned it. I don't think I've ever done that with a game where I've been so mad that I have literally returned the game. So, unfortunately, Catherine is another game I've yet to finish, and I'm sure it's another game that people love. But unlike Yakuza Kiwami, I don't see myself finishing that game just because I did not like the puzzle aspects, and that's such a huge part of the game. Like, literally, that's the whole gameplay aspect. Unlike Kiwami, where the fighting is just a small aspect. So, fortunately, I don't think I will ever finish Catherine, so I'll never know how it ends. And in retrospect, like, I could have looked it up on YouTube and probably, like, this was back in 2011, but I'm sure there were still videos about how to, like, finish that level, and if I was smart, I would have just looked it up and used a guide or something. But no, I was just so pissed off that I just ended up returning the game, and I never finished it. So, sorry, Catherine. I loved so much about you, but the puzzles just broke me. Okay, so speaking of boss fights, continuing on with that, let's go back, way back, to probably the earliest rage moment I can remember in games. Back in 99, 2000, whatever year Pokemon Gold and Silver came out. And you guys know, if you have been with the channel, I love Pokemon. Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver specifically is my favorite Pokemon game of all time. And the second generation I have such a special place in my heart for. But if you guys know the Pokemon series, if you hear me say Pokemon Gold and Silver, I'm sure it is no surprise what my rage moment was. Of course, it is Whitney's Miltank. So, Whitney's Miltank is kind of an infamous Pokemon meme at this point, but if you guys don't know too much about Pokemon, you've got the different gym leaders. Each gym leader has a specific type that they specialize in. So it's pretty easy if you know the type, like the type advantages and disadvantages, you can pretty easily like just completely decimate a gym as long as you have a Pokemon that's like effective against them. However, Whitney was the first normal type gym leader, and normal types are pretty infamous for being very trolly Pokemon. And Whitney had two Pokemon. She had a Clefairy and she had a Miltank. The Clefairy can be a little trolly at times. I believe it had like Charm or something like that that would potentially stop you from being able to attack, and Metronome can be a bit of a pain in the ass, but pretty easy to take care of. Now, Miltank is the issue. Miltank has the most like trolly set of moves possible, I feel like, at the time. So I think it had like Charm. So if your Pokemon was a male, which most Pokemon were, there was a chance your Pokemon just couldn't attack. Stomp, which had a high flinch rate where, once again, your Pokemon may not be able to attack. It had Milk Drink, so on the off chance you were able to whittle Miltank down, about to kill it, it can just heal itself up. And of course, the infamous Rollout. Rollout is the move that just like everybody remembers Miltank for. The thing about Rollout is with each successful hit, its power doubles. So if you're not able to stop the Miltank from like getting a couple of rollouts in at a time, it basically will just wipe your whole team very easily. And the problem is, unless you have a fighting type Pokemon, like at the time, second generation, fighting type was kind of the only like super effective Pokemon type against a normal. And fighting types were not easy to come by at the time. Now, I didn't know this when I was a kid, but there is a female Machop that you can get in the area. You can trade one. But I didn't know about that, so I just went in with my team. I think I had a Quilava, so I got a Chikorita. Or, oh my gosh, not a Chikorita, what am I saying? Cyndaquil. Cyndaquil, the fire type, and it was a Quilava at the time. And that is about the worst Pokemon, the worst starter you could have, because I believe Rollout is a rock type move, which is super effective against fire types. So my team just kept getting decimated over and over and over by this stupid Miltank, and I was getting so angry because I didn't know what to do. I just kept having to try and level my Pokemon up, but I was like, 10, 11 years old. I didn't like think about like, oh, I should use status effects, like I should try and paralyze it or things like that to try and stop it from using Rollout consecutively. I just kept getting wiped over and over again. And I was so long ago, I don't remember how I ended up winning, but I think I probably just over-leveled my Pokemon or accidentally did something smart in order to win. But yeah, so Whitney's Miltank is infamous for a reason, because for the most part, the games are quite easy, especially early on, because this is the other thing. This was the third gym. This is the third gym in the game, and we weren't used to having this kind of roadblock, you know? It's just like Whitney's Milk Tank was just like this big roadblock. And a lot of people, if you didn't get that female Machop, you were gonna have a bad time. So I'm sure there were moments from when I was young that I was also like, I had really rage moments, but that is one that definitely like sticks out to me. And as sad as it was when I first played Heart Gold and Soul Silver, somehow I still had trouble with Milk Tank. And I'm just like, I think even then I didn't know about the female Machop, so I was like still having a problem. Just like, how am I still having a problem with Milk Tank like 10, 13 years later? So yeah, Whitney's Milk Tank, just a very infamous, just rage, just, oh, I still hate her. I still hate her so much. And the worst part is, when you beat her, she won't give you the badge right away. She just cries and like, she won't give you the badge. I'm just like, bitch, do you know how much you made me cry? I was very happy to make her cry back. Alright, so let's get away from boss battles for a bit and let's talk about a game series that I love and hate in equal measures, and that is the Left 4 Dead series. I really love it. It's one of the few zombie games I can play because it's not really scary. It's just you and a group of friends just mowing down zombies, having a good time. But it can also be frustrating because sometimes the game can feel a little bit unfair, depending on how difficult it gets. So Left 4 Dead, you know, it's you and 3 other people, whether it is human characters or if it's just like AI playing, and you just get through levels and you just shoot a bunch of zombies. And there's also special infected as well, and they can like pin you down, they can drag you away from the rest of the group, and they can just really screw you over. And the thing is that you need to rely on your group to be able to save you, because once you are attacked by special infected, you're screwed. Unless someone can get to you in time, you're dead. So playing with AI is, you know, very hit and miss. The AI can be really stupid, as AI tends to be. But playing with people can be a lot of fun, but it can also be a very frustrating experience. And for me, I used to play with my husband when we were dating, and like the game came out at the time when we first started dating. We had a great time with it. Now here's the thing, when we first started dating and I was playing with him, I was on my best behavior because I didn't want to scare him off. But as we got more comfortable and we would play, I would get a little bit more frustrated with him if he like didn't immediately save me from a zombie if I was attacked. So I would start yelling at him, like if I was grabbed by someone, I'd be like, you know, come over and help me, what are you doing? And eventually we were playing one session, I can't even remember it, but he told me this when I was telling him that I was doing this video and I mentioned Left 4 Dead. I don't even remember this happening, but he said that like at one point he got so frustrated with me yelling at him that he walked over to the Xbox 360 and he just turned it off and he said, I'm not playing with you anymore. And the thing about my husband, he's like the sweetest, calmest, most patient person I know, and I pushed him over the edge. This is kind of like his rage. This is his rage moment in games as well. And then apparently I got up and I turned the Xbox back on and I was like, well, I'm not done playing. And he's like, well, you can play on your own, I'm done. So unfortunately I kind of ruined the game for him as well, and he like refuses to play with me even to this day. Like we haven't tried in a while to play Left 4 Dead, and I joked with him and I asked him, I was like, hey, are you still not going to play Left 4 Dead with me? And he's like, well, you'd have to show me that you've gotten better about like not getting upset with me. So maybe I'll even do like a video down the line. Maybe Mark and I will attempt to play Left 4 Dead and I will try not to yell at him this time. So unfortunately my immaturity led to kind of both of us not having a good time, but I like to think that I've gotten a little bit better, and I hope that if we do get a chance to play again, and maybe I can show him that I am not the person I was back when I was 20. Alright, so the next game I'm going to talk about involves an achievement specifically, and the game is Dishonored. I really love Dishonored. Dishonored is kind of like a stealth game where you have special powers, and you have to go around and you have to kill off certain targets. And the thing is that you can choose to either kill your targets or not kill them, but basically subject them to fates worse than death. They're kind of like your enemies who framed you for murder, and you're kind of on revenge, like a revenge path, and you're just taking down these targets. So there is an achievement in Dishonored called Ghost, and it involves you not being, I believe it's, you are not seen by anybody, except for your targets, and I think like you can only kill your targets. You can't kill anybody else. But the main aspect is you cannot be seen by anybody. So you have to play through the whole game without being seen by anybody. And I swear, because I think they have, it's been forever since I played Dishonored, I apologize if I'm wrong about this. I think at the end of each level it will like give you your stats. And I think that includes like saying like how often, like how many times you were spotted. So I was on like the quest to get this achievement. My husband and I were both trying for it. And I was playing through the game and it seemed like I was doing well. I didn't look like I'd been spotted by anyone, so I was on my way. And this, I'm not a stealth person either. Like, I'm not really into stealth games, but something about Dishonored really like hooked me and made me want to try this. And I got to the very end of the game and I was certain I got it. I was so happy. And I waited and I waited and I waited for that achievement to pop up, and it never did. So I played, God, like probably a 20 plus hour game for the sole reason of getting this achievement, and I was so sure I got it, and I didn't. And the worst part is my husband got it, so it wasn't even a matter of like, oh, maybe it's glitched or whatever. He got it and I didn't, and I was so furious that I just didn't play the game again. I didn't make another attempt because I was like, what was the point? What's the point of trying again when I was so sure I'd done everything right and then I didn't? So I did look it up like in preparation for this video, and apparently there is an issue with the ghost achievement can not pop up for people even though they were sure that they'd done everything right as well. So maybe this is just making myself feel better, but maybe that's what happened. Maybe I got some sort of glitch or I did something wrong or whatever where I should have got it but I didn't. But either way, that's a very sore spot, and I think that was also the moment where I just stopped giving a crap about achievements. I was never really a big like achievement whore, but like there would be certain ones where I would really try and get them. But that one I think just kind of put an end to me trying, because I'm like, what's the point? What am I doing with my life? Why do I care so much about achievements? So unfortunately, Dishonored, as much as I love it, also a little bit of a sore spot for me. Okay, so the last moment I'm going to talk about is I think the only one where I feel vindicated and I feel like I have a right to be angry about this. And it's not even necessarily that was something that happened in a game, it was something that happened to my game. And you might be thinking like, oh, did like you lose a save file? Did like your game crash and you lost all your stuff? I'm sure that's happened. I was trying to think of moments where like I lost a save file or like it crashed or it got corrupted or something like that. Nothing could really come to mind, but I can tell you about something that happened to my game, and it wasn't by me. I was not at fault for this. So I was living at home at the time. I was in high school. I think I was 15 or 16 years old, so quite young. And my brother and I, we both gamed. We both had our PS2. And my brother had a very bad habit of leaving his discs just on the floor. He wouldn't put them back in the cases. But here's the problem. He didn't just do that to his games. He did that to my dad's games, and he did that to my games. And one of my games was Final Fantasy X-2. Now here's the thing. Because I was still relatively young, I didn't have a lot of disposable income, so if I wanted to buy a game, it like took me some time to save up, and I would only basically get a couple of games a year that were my games. And Final Fantasy X-2 was one of them, and I was having a great time with it. I was decent amount of time into it. And of course my brother, he wanted to play one of his games, so he took my disc out and he didn't put it back in the case. He put it on the floor. Most of the time he at least had the good sense to have it like shiny side up so it wouldn't get scratched. But sometimes he wouldn't even do that. So eventually he did this enough times to my Final Fantasy disc that it got scratched up. And it got scratched up to the point it wouldn't play anymore. So obviously I was very upset with him. Now here is where I get a little bit bitchy and I get a little bit petty. I took one of his games, one of his discs, I believe it was like an NHL game or something, and I just took it out and I just took my nail and I just scratched it and I just put it on the floor. And of course when he tried to play it, it didn't work. So he went to my dad complaining about how his disc was all messed up, and my dad knew that he had the habit of leaving his discs out. So he told my brother, he's like, well, maybe if you put your games back in the discs, or your discs back in the boxes, that wouldn't have happened. And of course I'd complained to my parents about how like my game wasn't working because, you know, he left mine out. So I don't know if he had to like pay me back for Final Fantasy X-2, I know I got another copy. Maybe my parents just bought it for me because they felt bad, so I got to finish my game. And I think my brother knew I had done something to his disc, because like the difference between the scratches on mine and the scratches on his, like, were, like, mine I basically went just like this, you know, it was like I took a knife and just went like that, so like, it looked like a lot different, but I don't know if my parents like had a feeling I had done something. My brother, I think, definitely knew I had done something to it, but he had nothing that he could argue about because he knew that he was shitty about taking care of the disc. So that was kind of my revenge. And once again, just like with me admitting to putting that hole in the wall, this is my admission, because I'm sure my brother is watching this. I'm sorry, it was me, you were right, I was the one. I fucked your disc up. This was like 15 years ago. We're cool now. I sure hope we're cool now. But yes, that was just me getting real salty about my game getting ruined, you know, despite my best attempt at taking good care of my stuff. So I got mad and I did it back, and I'm not sorry about it. I'm sorry, but not sorry. So that is the moment where I feel like I was justified, but at the same time, maybe a little bit bitchy at the same time. But I'm sure I'm not the only one who has gotten revenge on their siblings for like screwing up their game, whether like they saved over your save file or they just did something to one of your games and you got back at them. Let me know in the comments if that's ever happened to you, if your siblings have ever like done something to your games and you got back at them, or just in general, because I'd love to hear those stories, to know that I'm not alone. Alright guys, so that will do it for this video about the moments in gaming that made me rage. Like I said, I probably have a lot more than I could pull from. These are just the ones I could think of for this week, but I'm sure there's other ones that my husband, my friends, my parents will remind me of. I could talk about general things like playing Mario Kart or Mario Party with friends and saying some really horrible things to each other, but it's all in good fun. Like, there's, you know, I definitely get salty about like Mario Kart, Mario Party, but I couldn't think of any specific moments, just those games in general, playing with people got me salty. But yeah, I had a lot of fun sitting down and talking about these. It felt like it feels like it's a confession. I feel like I'm in a confession booth and I am telling my sins to the world, and now I feel cleansed. I feel a little bit better now. But I want to hear what moments in gaming pissed you guys off and just made you rage, and what you did. Have you ever destroyed like controllers or TVs or discs or anything? Let me know so I feel like I'm not the only one who's done that. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any suggestions for any future topics that you'd like me to talk about, let me know in the description. Give this video a thumbs up and let me know that you liked it, and I will continue on with this series. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Until then, bye.
Special shoutouts to my top tier patrons: Nana, Sparky, Tequila Mockingbird, Dumbass Loser, Derek Nickel, Harry Gazif, Asborn Kennedy, and Icognito.